This is a BBC podcast. You can get all our podcasts and our terms of use at bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.
BBC World Service, I'm Mike Williams with the Why Factor. Today, why do we dance? What does it do for us? And what can we do with it?
The military historians, William McNeil, looked at the fact of moving together in time. And he was interested first in drills and wondering why certain armies were better than others historically. And his idea was, if they moved in time together, they would be better. And then that took him to look at dance. And his argument, he talks about muscular bonding.
What a nice phrase, muscular bonding.
Yeah, no, I think it is very imaginative in a way. You have a sense of what it is.
There are clearly lots of different types of dance around the world. Do they have anything in common? What's at the core of human dancing?
They transform human experience. They create special kinds of relationships between people. In social dancing, when a couple, suddenly they don't know each other, they are in that close embrace, and suddenly they move as one. So one could talk about a muscular bonding there.
I show respect to the earth, to my God, to my teacher, and everyone who's dancing with me must think.
My name is Nikita Thakar and I run the Dancing Nikita company. The dance style that I specialise in is Indian classical dance. It's called Kathak, K-A-T-H-A-K. It's a North Indian style of dance, and it's a very traditional form of dance. It's approximately 5,000 years old, and it's a linear form of dance, so the body is always upright. It uses lots of angles and shapes and lines, and it incorporates footwork, so we wear ankle bells around our ankles and a very heavy costume, very heavy makeup as well. It's quite a theatrical form of dance as well. It's a form of storytelling as well as technique.
Storytelling, how do you tell story with the dance?
Kathak dance is based on Hindu mythology, so we tell stories of religious scriptures and mythological gods and goddesses using our hands, facial expressions, and it's really one of the only forms of dance where one dancer can actually enact up to about 5 or 6 characters.
My name is Grau. I'm an anthropologist and I specialise in performance and especially dance.
What's the imperative to dance?
Transformation.
You think dance can let you be someone else?
Yes, and sometimes it is formal. I'm talking here in the West, but where I work in Australia with the Tiwi, through dance, men become women and women become men. Men dance that are pregnant, that are giving birth, that are breastfeeding and so on. Obviously all sorts of things that can't happen in everyday life. And similarly, women do things in dance that are not even supposed to know in everyday life because there are men, only men who have this sort of knowledge. So,
what kind of knowledge?
With the Tiwi women, usually it is men who find the spirit of the unborn children. And when you ask women about that, say, no, they don't know how they look like, they can't tell you very much. But on the dance floor, there are certain moments where they are the one finding the spirit children because they have become fathers for the person for whom they dance. And so this notion you have in a traditional society on the dance floor, you can experience all sort of other social relationships that you can't experience in everyday life. And here in London in 2014, then you can experience on the dance floor different personalities that, you may be very quiet and meek, and suddenly you become this salsa queen on the dance floor.
When I dance, I feel like I'm not Nikita anymore. I feel like I have no labels associated with me. I feel like I have no judgment. I'm just free. I'm in my own world. I create a space around me and I just fill that space with purity.
Do you dance for other people to see?
I dance for audiences. I am a performer, but even on stage, I create my own bubble. The audience are just observers.
That's quite strange. Isn't dance a social thing or a theatrical thing? It's a performance, or it's an intimate thing between two people, small group of people?
It is a very intimate process that takes place whereby I, the performer, am in my own space, creating my own feelings and emotions, and the audience as observers are also a part of that, and they're being drawn into my experience.
My name is Professor D Reynolds. I recently led a project called the Watching Dance Project. The full title was Watching Dance Kinesthetic Empathy.
Kinesthetic what?
Empathy. Kinesthetic empathy.
She wanted to know if dancers could somehow communicate with the audience, actually change the way they feel. So the researchers took dance fans and wired them up to monitors measuring how brain and body react to the performance.
So the people we selected were people who'd either watched lots of ballet or watched lots of the Indian form Bharatanatyam. And what we did was we tested their response using this technique, transcranial magnetic stimulation. So they have on their heads this electromagnetic coil, and this transmits electromagnetic pulses through the brain, particularly a part of the brain called the motor cortex. And then when that's happening, the response in the muscles is measured with EMG or electromyography. And particular muscles are targeted because we wanted to see whether the muscles that the dancers were using were the same ones where the spectators were experiencing the heightened activity.
So what did you find?
We found that the visually experienced spectators, particularly with the ballet, did have a more active response in the muscles that were being used by the dancers. So we noticed that they had higher activation of their arm muscles while they were watching the dance.
They're not actually moving themselves, though, are they?
No, they're not actually moving, but there's a heightened, I suppose one way of describing it would be a heightened sensitivity in those muscles. You can see how excited the nerve pathway is, how ready are those people to move.
So it's almost as if they're preparing to join in the dance.
Yeah, exactly.
All this from just watching?
Yeah, all that from just watching.
At a rehearsal studio in the south of England, the dancers of a company called Stopgap are preparing for their latest tour. One of them is Dave Toole.
We don't expect people to be sat in their seats in the theatre or wherever they're watching dance thinking, oh yeah, I really want to do that, and start leaping around at any given moment. We just want people to understand, just feel something. People have asked me before why I do it, and I think for me it's pretty simple. It's just something that I'm comfortable doing and get a lot from. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the fact that other people enjoyed it, but I think primarily it's just for me.
So what does it do for you?
It just gives you a freedom, I think. It's a world where you don't have to think about anything else other than that moment in time.
Before you started dancing, what did you think a dancer looked like?
Well, coming from a sort of typically northern, narrow-minded background, I would say, other than dances in musicals, my knowledge of dance would have been ballet. So you would have the image of the, perfectly thin boy or girl, because the guys are equally thin and tall and slim and agile and long-limbed and whatever. So it didn't occur to me, because I never imagined myself as being a dancer. I never watched dancers and thought, oh, I'd love to do that. I used to like that, but I'd never imagined doing it.
Dave, before we go on, I'd like to listen again to the anthropologist Grau.
The body is symbolic. It says something about how we view men and women, and they change with time. The whole training of dancers is not to have an everyday body, is to have this highly specialized body that will be appreciated in the society.
An ideal body.
Yes, an ideal body, and in a genre like ballet, it's an unattainable body. The aesthetic of ballet has moved into contemporary dance. And now the contemporary dancers, while they're still a slightly broader variety, they look more and more like ballet dancers.
I'll confess that I had a similar idea. I see a female, petite, thin, almost certainly wearing a tutu, long arms, long legs. I see the man a very similar shape, but somehow stronger, bigger in the chest, stronger in the arms and the legs. I should say that you don't look like that. How tall are you, Dave?
Standing about a metre tall.
And tell us why.
I actually don't have any legs. They were amputated when I was 18 months. I was born with a condition called sacral agenesis, which basically meant my legs didn't develop properly. So when I was about 18 months, they amputated them. So from a very early age, I've kind of got around on my hands a lot. I use a wheelchair now, but when I was younger, I got around on my hands, and I think that's a lot of where my, for want of a better word, skills developed for the dance that I do now.
Well, it is remarkable to watch you dance, the way you move, but I would imagine that an awful lot of people would think that legs are a kind of fairly basic requirement for a dancer. I don't know why that is. And maybe the fact that you're a dancer without legs means that we need to have a little bit of a think about what dance actually is. Mm-hmm. So what is it for you? How would you define it?
Oh, I think possibly it's a way of being able to express how you feel in a given moment. And to express yourself, you don't need all your arms and your legs. You can do that in whichever way. You could do it with an eyebrow. And I've seen people with very limited mobility do exactly that and being able to express exactly what they're thinking in a moment with whatever they've got.
They say that dance is a way to make contact. In the theatre, that communication is at a distance. But in social dance, according to Grau, the connection is much more direct.
In a lot of dances, like the Kayleys or those barn dances, provided you had a go and went on the dance floor, by the end of the evening you would have touched everyone, because you keep changing partners. And I think it's quite important. We do need that sense of touch. All those people who go to those dance classes that are in hold, this is nice, because in something like tango, you hug someone, but it doesn't go any further. You just have this nice warmth of another body, but you don't, at the end of your couple of dances, you thank you very much, and you go away. I'm convinced there is something there.
To be honest, I don't know how to read the language of dance. It's certainly not a language I can speak. But perhaps I could learn. Perhaps I could learn kinesthetic empathy, learn to understand their stories, and learn how they turn memories and emotions into movement.
I can remember being 4 or 5 at family parties. My weakness was Elvis Presley. As soon as Elvis Presley came on, I would dance in the middle of the room while everybody stood around watching.
This is dancing on your hands.
This is dancing on my hands. I used to do it in the working men's clubs as well, because I lived opposite a working men's club and spent a lot of time there, so they used to have bands come on Friday and Saturday, and I would dance to them. There is a particular piece of music in the show that we do now that my dad used to sing, usually on a Sunday in the working men's club for everybody in the club. And when we were making this piece, Lucy, the choreographer, had asked me about growing up in the working men's clubs and my dad singing and everything. So I told her about all this, and she said, OK, I want you to go away and write about it and make a solo. And she said, think of a song that he'd sing. So I chose this song, which was Sunshine of Your Smile. And the response from audiences for that solo has been amazing. People have said that, they can see that I obviously believe what I'm doing. I'm not just dancing. I'm not just making moves. Everything I do in that solo means something, and it reacts to a certain point in time and a certain thing about my father. So,
what does the song sound like? Can you sing? As well as dance?
I didn't get my dad's voice, I'm afraid. Do you know what? I only know the chorus. It's terrible, isn't it? After 30, 40 years, I still only know. It's, give me your smile, the sunlight in your eyes. Life would not hold a fairer paradise. Give me the right to love you all the while. I don't think you have to be agile, fit, young, thin. I think anybody can express whatever they're feeling in a form of movement.
Shadows may fall upon the land and sea.
There are dozens of different podcasts now available from the BBC, including news, documentaries, science, business, arts and sport. For details of them all, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.